Good morning, Nico. How are you doing today? And good
I'm
morning.
so happy to be here with you. You don't even know.
Yeah, I know. It's this is a crazy time that we're living in right now.
Oh,
Anyone who's on social media, who is sort of who has a pulse, you can see what we've been dealing with. I'm in New York, but everywhere across the country, things are in a state of unrest, obviously, and I'm not going to pretend as a white straight male that I can begin to talk to anybody's sort of issues or what they're dealing with.
I have a friend who works in mental health. He's a smart guy, and he's like on the verge of collapse. I mean, I talked to him yesterday, and he's like, anarchy is setting in. There's a civil war. The nation is burning. And I'm just like,
yeah, it's
well, maybe we should take a step back. And,
yeah. No, but you know what? I can see why that's weighing heavily, because I mean, 2020 has kicked everybody's asses in a lot of ways, and just like I said, this week is sort of encapsulates, I think, everything. And we're not here to. Good morning, everyone. We're not here to bring anyone down on a Sunday morning. But life is life. Comics are comics, and I know we were banding about whether or not we should even put on a show today. There's so much going on. People, even some of our regular listeners who I've reached out to, they're being profoundly affected by this. But you know what? When it comes down to it, we were doing this during COVID. We're going to continue doing this now. Comics are an escape for a lot of people more than ever, and I think we're going to talk like an hour and a half. We're gonna find a way to just sort of throw a curtain over things for a while and then pop back to it. But we do want anyone who's listening to this after the fact, if you're dealing with this directly and you've been dealing with this your whole lives, know that that we are behind you, and like I said, we'll make our voices heard, and we're gonna get, like I said, my kids are always, we taught them to protest what they believe in. So I'm in Staten Island, a big part of what's going on in terms of protest here because of the history of Eric Garner, etc. So just know that there are people out there supporting, and also please be aware that social media, between Russian bots trying to stir up the flames, and we don't know for sure what's going on in social media. It's so quick that it picks up speed. Like, the misinformation is the new information, is how I sort of put it out. And that's the unfortunate, the paradigm of what we're living in. We have all this access, but you have to be able to filter this access, and I think that's the most important thing.
Well, I mean, think about how a little trinket of bad information wreaks havoc in our isolated community.
Yeah, I think that's
we don't have any Russian bots,
right?
You know what I mean? There's no one trying to cause unrest. There's no not
at all. And I see my boy Mel in there, and I know this is an issue that's strong to him as well. So we'll continue to address chats and comments throughout, but we are going to try to address other things. And already we're dealing with so much anyway. And now this is just, like I said, this is where our country is, unfortunately. It's not just Minnesota. It's not just Staten Island. It's, as you can see, it's all over, and it's a sad state of affairs. I think they said the luckiest two people in the world were the two who took off in the SpaceX shuttle, right off the planet. Like, they had the right idea at the right time. Get the hell out. But anyway, I had a crazy week, Nico. This is what I was dealing with. Let's see if I can get this up here. So I was sitting on my lawn yesterday. I was on a Zoom call, and it was this yesterday. It was Friday, I guess. I was on a Zoom call, and my block, sort of, cars sort of race down my block. Even though I have a median up there, we're always trying to stop cars. They can't put a speed bump up because it's an emergency throughway. So I'm sitting there on a Zoom call, and a car comes really quickly down, and I was like, what was that? And then all of a sudden I hear, sometimes when cars make a quick turn, like a trailer, you hear like the bump on the asphalt. This was more than that. So I went running down my block. My son came out of the house, and people were coming out of their house. This car didn't stop at the stop sign, shot right across the two-way street, right through my neighbor's fence into his kitchen. So I went running over. This car was in the kitchen. You could see the whole, like, sort of where when they took the car out afterwards. I had some video on there up. as well. And apparently this guy must have had a seizure. He just kept saying, I don't know what happened. We're trying to pull stuff off this car. He puts it in reverse, almost runs us over. He had like 5 fire trucks. We had police. A woman came running out of the house. She said the car just missed hitting her at her kitchen table. So this has been a crazy week. It was obviously, she was shook. We're all shook. So we're in crazy times. But now let's I'm gonna make a segue over. We're gonna have a guest on today.
Yeah.
And this is I think he's going to be making his internet or his podcast debut. I think, in fact, his one of his sons hooked him up with all the equipment.
First appearance Sunday.
First appearance right here. Mark it on your calendars. So I wanted to talk. We always do some pickups first, but just we're really going to talk a little bit about the state of the industry with our friend Half Price Crook, who's coming today. Jessup, I don't know what he'd prefer to go by, and I want to show some books. We spoke a little bit about last week. This was that torso book and stuff from the stream. There we go. Let's see if I can make myself bigger. There. So this was that torso first print issue 1. Again, tight black cover, tough to find. It was a 6-issue series. Was able to dig up a bunch of these on the cheap. And this is Michael Bendis was speaking about a little how this is going to be sort of his passion project and something he's personal to. The artist is amazing. If you don't know Marco Draco, in fact, I just heard his Manhunter Kate Spencer book just got canceled as well, so that's a shame. I spoke a little bit about this was the first published trade back edition. Nice first edition of that. So it's a true crime graphic novel, very sort of very adult. It earns its adult label. It was also part of that Jinx label, that his own Image Jinx label he had up. So I grabbed a couple of these Jinx copies as well because was anything ever done with that, Nico, with Jinx? Do we know? Did they ever have anything, like any show? I know they'd spoken about it, but I don't remember anything ever coming out. Sometimes those shows, like I know you're talking to Jimmy about Painkiller Jane. I forgot that had even been a show at some point. I was like, oh,
right.
Yeah. So because these things come and go so quickly, but then then they ride into the cycle again.
Yeah, it's tough. You gotta measure which network it's going to be on.
Exactly. And I just had my comic shop order. I was trying to pick up some books I had missed, and these are things I had ordered before. So Ludocrats, fun book, very quirky, very out there, and again, Kieran Gillen on art, Jeff Stokely, who I love as well. I know my boy Dan Piercy, big fan of the Goon, continue to pick up those B covers on the Goon, which I love. We're having a lot of different artists on, and I want to thank, I don't think he's on here yet, but he gave us a big shout out on his show. And I think he lives pretty close to Half Price Cook. Half Price Crook. I'm gonna call him Half Price Cook. I've been watching Top Chef. Bang, third print, Bang. Just continue, second and third prints to continue to go crazy. So I picked up a few of those undercover. I really liked, and let's see, I'm not even sure if this is this? Yeah. So this was year 0. This was one of the books that, unfortunately, that new publisher AWA, which is Artists, Writers, Artisans. This came out in the sort of the maelstrom of COVID. There were some these Upshot books that came out as well that had previews, but this was the first really, again, a lot of these books we're looking at now, someone brought up The Resistance being about a virus. We've had a few sort of books that are really capturing these times without knowing it. But this is a beautiful gatefold Diodato, or not a gatefold, I guess it's called, what do you call that on both sides? I don't know. Gatefold cover, I guess. Mirka and Dolph, I just love,
wrap around
covers. Yeah, there we go. Wrap around. Yeah, I didn't want to say reach around. That's another show. Speaking of, here's Unsafe by Mirka and Dalfo. Continues to put out those sort of risque covers, but this was a D cover, and I think this is an interesting book.
If somebody gets her on a pseudo mainstream flavor, it's lights out.
Oh yeah, because she's had Mercy. She had Unnatural, which
people are desperate for it with Mercy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's 75 variants of that first issue from different retailers. And people are like, hi, could you put her on something mainstream? Thanks, please.
Yeah, and it'll be coming. It'll be coming as well. We'll see that. And
I've not had the chance to read Mercy. Is it good, Gary?
To be honest, I didn't read it. I've only read Unnatural. I haven't read Mercy. I didn't even pick up any copies of Mercy because I thought it was really sort of, it looked like it was being overhyped. I'll wait until the underhype comes back again for it.
Right.
I got Buffy 14, and the reason I got this, I've been collecting those covers that have all the different Slayers. They're about to have the Chosen one, I think, is coming. this week, or I think that's what they're calling it. So they're going to introduce some new sort of twist in the Buffy universe. But this brought back Buffy, and they're introducing sort of this alternate dimensions and alternate universes. So issue 14 was supposed to be a big one, and then the other thing that I grabbed. I'm a big fan of fantasy sort of movies of the 80s. Everything from I even like Willow. I like the Dark Crystal stuff, and I like what they did when they came back with the new Dark Crystal. But we saw that they're going to do a sequel to Labyrinth, so I decided I was going to pick up, and let's see, I'll go bigger on this one. Let's see. Oh, no, we went bigger on you, bigger on me. So this is a Bill Syncovich. I think it was a 1/50 cover for Labyrinth, Jim Henson's Labyrinth Coronation. This is sort of like the sequel, prequel.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and if you look, it's sort of like you can see her face like she's looking up. It's tough to make out, I think. But it's Syncovich. It was a 9.8 Virgin cover, back cover Labyrinth Coronation one as well. So I didn't really have a huge week of grabbing things, looking for stuff. I just sort of, so much was going on, and like I said, my heart wasn't in it this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what have you been up to, Nico?
I went out yesterday.
Okay.
I didn't realize that the country was burning.
Because you're. I mean, I don't want to say you're rural, but you're relatively rural, right? I mean, West Virginia people think
like,
you're not.
Okay, so I'm an hour from Pittsburgh, an hour from Morgantown, 5 minutes from PA, 5 minutes from Ohio.
Okay, so you're like in a.
But like, it's a very kind of time around here. I think they've got like a farming program at the high school. Like, I remember when I went to high school, like, people did 4-H. You called it Triple H. Yeah. That was the WWF thing. Yeah, and I was just like, oh, so I mean, that's a thing, and like it's very communal. I'm probably a city living kind of guy, but today is when I remember that there's virtue to the simple life of small towns. So anyway, but I made it like intuitively the right move. I didn't go towards Pittsburgh. I went towards Half Price Crooks areas of Ohio, which, for the record, is just like the most glorious land to pick comics in. It just really is. So we were talking before the show. I was like, should I grab some books? And Gary's like, but I bought some stuff. I continue to buy Star Wars books, for the record. It's something I don't know about, that I can follow lists and learn about it. And, for somebody who feels like that, true excitement to like learn a whole new area of comics, I'm in. To hell with it. We'll have a show. It'll be forthcoming. You got to still give me a little bit more if you really want it to be like valuable. Give me a couple more weeks, but we'll be in soon. So here's kind of the stuff I do when I go in. We talk about looking in the weird boxes. Mm-hmm. I look for like cartoon books and girl comics. That's what I say. I'm like, do you have any cartoon books or girl comics? We got a perv here. You have the older ones, and then I grab stuff like this for $3.
Let me put you bigger over here. I keep doing this. This is fun today. There we go.
Yeah, you ready? $3, 10 center.
Yeah, those romance books, like especially like the young romance, teen romance, my own romance. I saw you.
How about this one? I don't know what this thing's worth, but I know it's worth a little bit of change. Okay, $3. Now I don't know if this is cartoon or romance, but it's hilarious.
So these were at a because I find a lot of these types of books at more shops that don't specialize in comics per se. I find them more at like your like antique stores, magazines. Like,
that's exactly right. So where I went was a place that did a little bit of video games, a little bit of comic books, a little bit of action figures, and then. So do you have any girl comics? Got me those. And then when I was like, how about cartoons and stuff like the old cartoons? I got this. Hold on, you ready? Who signed that? LB Cole. $3. And it's gorgeous. I mean, it's got this little craziness there. But
Yeah.
and otherwise, like it's in really
Oh my
good
gosh.
shape, dude.
That
I was
is,
just like,
you know,
holy crap.
and I'm sort of like I'm a modern whore, but when I see books like that, they
For $3?
get a tingly. I get a tingle. I get all a tingle there.
Yeah, for $3. So I do stuff like this. Like I'll grab like this old Alan Moore series.
The Alan Moore Providence stuff.
You know what I mean? Paid $1 for this.
Oh yeah, that and explain
First Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, first Squirrel Girl, and that was when she was in her like original format. Though that's a funny aside, Nico. That there were all these people who were really upset about that they made Squirrel Girl less sexy. And if you look at what she looked psychotic in those early appearances. So I don't know who the people are, the Squirrel Girl fan base.
Is she a child?
And again, I think she's like 12. So there's some craziness when people pick the most bizarre things to go after in the comic hobby.
May God have mercy because I don't. Pass. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I grabbed these when I see them for $1, dude. I love this book.
Yeah.
You remember this sucker from when we were younger?
Yeah. That's like catching, and again, that's what we always talk about, like nostalgia. Like no one, there might be a couple other people who are feeling the same way.
$15.
How much?
15.
Oh, yeah, that's a steal.
All day, right? And now I did go crazy. I paid $75 for this. Woo! But I'll be getting slabbed forthwith.
But you know what?
And I paid $50 for this thing, but only because it's perfect. I mean, it is freaking. I was just like, yeah.
Now, when do you take them out of the bags? Do you look at the back covers on these, or they won't?
Only if I pay. My rule is if I pay more than $20, I take it out.
Yeah, because I think that's always interesting. I think people always ask them like, oh, they feel funny. They don't want to, they just look at it from the front. But you got to look at the back too. That's only like getting half a thing. There's that Adam Legend of the Blue Marvel. The
trade paperback is like, I don't know, $150, $200, $100. I don't even know. It's crazy how expensive it is. I pull them off shelves for cover price. The retailer can't reorder them. $1.
Dave Stevens, of course, Airboy. We're Dave Stevens fanboys over on this end.
Yeah. And I grabbed this. This is another one of my dollar finds all the time.
Yeah, there are some great cheaper ones, and I know that there are some list of all those Dave Stevens covers. I know CBSI did some covers.
Did they?
Yeah, they did a Dave Stevens cover blast. I think almost like 2 years ago. Yeah, that's a great resource to go back, check it out, and especially for covers. And some of them just sort of go hidden or unknown until they pop. When sometimes you get a key alert on those, right? And all of a sudden they take off, Nico. So have them before the key alert comes through.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to buy some more before they do a key alert.
That's for sure. So I thought we'd go over a little news. I also, we have a lot of great. Not only do we get great comments on our chat, but we get great comments in our feedback. And I'm like, I can't tell you how grateful I am that we have like a dozen plus listeners every Sunday morning, and we're popping 300 listeners a week. We have our couple hate listeners who I love them. Bring them on, because if you're listening to me and we're triggering you in a way, you know what? Why not? Like if that's what you get off on, come listen to us and be triggered.
My heart beats for you.
Absolutely. So yeah, and I'm just looking. I'm going to stop before we pop into talk more comics. But yeah, candlelight vigils. When you're seeing some of these scenes, and just this is a weird segue, but I've seen some great scenes out of like Newark, New Jersey. They were doing. They just had protesters in the streets singing, and just like Newark really. The way they handled it, I've seen police officers marching with groups of people as well. So please, again, if you're listening, if you're in an area and you can support in any way, get out there, be safe. But if you feel at all, like I said, this is not the time, because people are just like, I'm seeing them grab guns off of people like this, Molotov cocktails being launched out there. So please be safe, be careful. But
everybody's scared. It's just a bad, dangerous potential scene, right? I mean, the police are scared. The protesters are scared. The police are then more scared. The protesters are more scared. I mean, it's just escalates. It's just all bad.
And then you have, like I said, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when half the people being arrested from these protests, or 99% of them are from out of town and being, you know, these galvanized groups rushing through. But I'm not going to get political. I said I wasn't going to get political, and I'm only going to get political as that sign today over there. But believe me, as someone who lives in Staten Island, I'm in Prime County, and
well, one of the things we should talk about is, you know, so there's that sentiment from one of my friends who I consider well-adjusted for. Okay. Do you think that that is going to bleed over into comics? And, you know, we saw like a lot of people who I think are smart about comics, including myself, just shocked at the amount of money that was spent and attention that turned towards our hobby in a time of crisis. I mean, for a ragtag group of lunatics, we were able to finally coalesce, you know, and sort of champion the hobby and the cause that we love.
Yeah.
Is there a risk that this is, you know, a tipping point for that kind of stuff, or hell no?
No, you know what? I don't know. It's interesting. I've seen, like, I always say I carefully curate my Twitter feed, and I try to, you know, I don't try to funnel out or cycle out all the, like, you know, Comicsgate crowd and some of the more vocal and verbal conservative crowd sometimes. But I do have to say that I'm seeing a lot of people I follow call out, like, comic creators and say, you know what, you have stances on everything, but now when this is happening, you're not taking a stance. Or bigger companies like Netflix came right out, put a big statement and saying we're standing with our, you know, our creative in front and behind the camera. And then I saw people saying, well, where's Marvel? Where's DC? Where's Boom Studios? Where are these statements coming out? So that's, you know, people can make their voices heard with that. And if you do have the time and the money to sort of put into this right now, I know there are a lot of places where you can give to protests, you can give to bail money in different places as well. So you can give your money in different places. If you're feeling that, you know what, I need to step away from comics. I need to step away and just sort of, yeah, I saw that, Larry. I was going to bring up Rick Remender said, you know what, do me a favor, unfollow me, don't buy my books. And he's like, and he said it in a way that was a little, you know, I try to keep us not safe. I try to keep us safe for work, for, you know, if anyone, like, you know, we may have a teen audience. So again, those metrics, pretty 35 to 55 is our wheelhouse, Nico, and male. But yeah, it is bleeding over. And you know what, you're going to see the same people. Like I said, the people I tend to follow tend to be more of, you know, pretty active and political anyway. So these are the people who are sort of saying, you know, speaking out, and you know, the big thing is keep things visible, keep tweeting those things that are sort of are going to keep it in the site, because, you know, the public's mindset is very sort of short, and if it's not out there, they're going to move on. So this is something that we can't move on from. You know, there's no way that we're going to be able to solve the problem, but we need to figure out, you know, how can we rectify the problem? And that's a big thing, because you can never heal until you start to address problems in the room. But again, we're probably going to keep touching on this more. I'm hoping Half Price Crook, I'm going to get that wrong all day. Hopefully he'll be joining us soon. I wanted to, so before I jumped over, I wanted to well, I want to talk about Jim Bowers. So he suggested talking a little bit about, because I put this up, I'm going to go to this, I'm going to share this page. I'm going to go here. I'm going to add this to the stream. I'm an expert at this now, Nico. Get ready. So this was
Maestro, if you will.
Yeah. So this was the picture that sort of that he said, oh, you spoke about regretting selling this. He's like, are there other books? And what I do is I always take pictures of my books that, you know, back as I sell them. And I went back and looked through some of the annals of books I had, and I sort of did a top 10, Nico, of books that for one reason or another I wish I'd kept on to longer, that I sold too soon. So
I have one story.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to tell your story as well. And I was hoping that Jessup could get on if he joins us. So this was at Uncle Scrooge that I got from Comic-Con. I love Indiana Jones. I love DuckTales. He combined it into one sort of the launch pad. So I ended up, yes, I sold that. I got an offer. Someone saw the book. They were a bigger DuckTales fan than I, but I regret it. This is my favorite Magic cover, maybe of all time, the Adagrana Inferno one. Let It Go.
Lord.
But again, there are covers I keep not because I think they're going to go through the roof, but just because it's a beautiful cover. And now I just can't pay what I've seen it go for. This Chew one, let it go way, way too early, because I think it has bigger things afoot in terms of John Layman. Another cover I love that was so tough to get back in the day. This, of course, is a Run the Jewels variant. This was very this was a homage to Run the Jewels. If you don't know, they're a hip hop rap group. That was a tough cover. This JSC, I had a whole JSC Campbell run, but I always something about this cover. Beautiful,
the best one.
Very different, right? Like that, it has more of a cartoony style. Like
she's dressed like a normal human too.
Yeah, it's not the best picture. I must have been using my my older phone at that time. This one, this I know this could have been a 9.9. I'm telling you, it, especially for a bound book, never opened, sold it, and the only white you see is like the white board behind it. And these were pictures that I think were taken on my couch at the time. But another one I regret, because I always thought this was the Harley book. I know other people love, you know, obviously Batman Adventures as well. This Sandman one, this is one I just got rid of recently. I have another copy, but this was a beautiful copy. And my big mistake is I get to the point where I'm lazy and I don't send in books that probably should have been slabbed and I could be tripling my money on easily.
Oh, absolutely. Same here.
I take what's in my pocket, and I think, you know, people make the mistake sometimes of always selling a book too or holding on to a book too late and getting greedy. I think my biggest mistake, and that I've learned, is selling books too soon, right? Like hitting the early time before the peak. Here's another one. This was definitely a 9.8 at least that I got rid of, and I think I sold it in a bunch of Saga 1 to 12. Just so you know, yeah, that's a regret. And then this is one I just got rid of. I have 2 more copies, but this was another beauty. If you go in there, I would say that was probably that's probably my top 9, top 10. Let me see. Do I have another one? Oh, this is one I regret buying, actually, and I couldn't get rid of soon enough. For those who don't know, Ethan Van Sciver, Cyber Frog. Yeah, so that was pretty much, that's when I regret buying, not regret selling at the time, based on what we found out about him afterwards. Probably get more thumbs up after this one. I thumbs down after this one.
Oh, yeah, we're in fucking trouble when it comes to a thumbs down. I can't wait.
No, because he's split apart from the movement now. Now he's actually divided the movement up too. He's down the line because someone were making fun of some of his friends. I don't even want to get into that.
I pay less attention to that than I do to I don't know, professional lacrosse. Like, is there such a thing?
Yeah, that's it.
I don't know. That's how I don't know.
So, you know, I'm the modern guy, but I'm sure I was thinking of this in terms of you, and I'm sure there are some golden age things that you had, or yeah. Tell us.
Right. So, wow. I mean, full disclosure, about 7-8 years ago, I sold everything. I had like what turned out to be about $2,000 worth of books stored away at my parents' house that I just couldn't get to. But I sold my entire collection, got out of comics. You know, so that was like 2012, 2013-ish, which was probably the time that most of you were getting into comics hot and heavy. It's really when things started to take off. But, you know, it is what it is. Around that same time, because I was flush with cash. I mean, I was doing really well. It was kind of like a boom time for comics. But I was opening, you know, my own business at the time. Anyway, the point is, I had a shot at a Tech 168. They wanted $4,000. Today it would be every bit of 20.
I was gonna say like five times that now, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and for those that are unfamiliar, that is the origin of the Joker, the classic Red Hood cover. Now, spending $4,000 on a comic book today for me would be, you know, serious, extreme business, and I'm all in, right?
Yeah.
At the time, I was literally on my way out. You know, about 6 months later, I just moved everything, and that's no excuse. I wanted it. I had the money for it. I'd been waiting for it. I had an opportunity to get it, and you know, say la vie.
Yeah.
But for me, it's the ones that I passed, not the ones that I sold. You know, I mean. God, I sold with my that collection that I had, or whatever inventory you want to call it, like a short box of Saga Ones. Because if you were collecting back then, everybody saw that one coming, right?
Yeah.
Like we didn't see The Walking Dead coming, but we saw Saga One coming like a mile away. That doesn't bother me. None of the ones that I like let go of really bother me.
Yeah, you can't take it to heart,
but it's the ones that like, oh wow, if I could only held out. Those
are those like I always think of that meme, right? And where you see the guy walking, the famous meme, the guy walking with the girl, and he's looking back at that other thing, and it's sort of like you're walking out with this modern variant, you spend $150, and you're looking at a beauty that you left behind. You can't do that because
love the one you're with.
Yeah, but my hair's growing longer than ever, but what I do have left would be torn out if I constantly had buyer's remorse. And again, there's so much, like, I have to say, there's so many times where I've seen a book and I've chased and I'm like, oh, I got to find this book. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I already have that in my long boxes because I have so many things and that's why it's important. Keep your books cataloged. Keep going through your books. Use this time. If you have time on your hands and you're going sort of crazy and you have books, this is a great time to be cataloging your books. Like, find a way to sort of put that energy in, because you may have some of those books lying around that you bought, back in the day. I remember, we're talking about like Saga was a big thing. When I was really getting to speculating, because I've always been a collector and a reader, but not a speculator. Enormous. Everyone was going off on that Enormous, the Tim Daniels book, and it was the craziest thing. And I'm like, is this really the next hot thing? I'm like, I was not a believer in that one, but so
kind of my thought is this, and tell me if you disagree, but like for me, it's never the ones that I sold that really kind of like irk me. Yeah. It's the ones that I didn't buy. And usually it's the ones I didn't buy because I don't know if I'll get an opportunity to ever get them at that price or at a price that makes sense to me again.
Yeah.
So like, Batman comics aren't super duper rare, like compared to other Golden Age comics, but they're scarce, right? Like if they're like diamonds, like they're expensive because everybody wants them. Mm-hmm. I mean, COVID is rare. Nobody wants it. You know what I mean? But like, so two different concepts. But the point is, so like, sure, I could buy that book, right? But I don't want to spend $20,000 on a comic book. Buy a car for $20,000. I mean, that's insane. I'm not in that economic bracket.
And I think comics, that for me, comics, that's more the exception, right? Because you're not going to find these like beautiful, like, and that's why I'm looking, Larry, like I'm not a Magic the Gathering guy. Like that's even a little, it's even a little geeky for me. I was never got into Magic or, Pokemon stuff, but I'm assuming that those are super valuable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's one of my, my boys.
I don't even know what they are, but I know they're like, I don't know if they're 20 or like 40 grand, but like that's big money.
Well, I was thinking of you because for those who don't know, Nico also is a semi-regular on Tales from the Flipside.
Son of a bitch. I've been having trouble there, dude.
But they were talking about the Otani that they're doing a break, because the big thing now is you can't find cards in card cases, and they did a break, and somebody won this Otani rookie like one of something card.
Yeah.
Like 10,000, or I forgot, it was like, and it sold in a like a mint condition for 10,000. But
again, our man Vinny.
Yeah.
Vinny K, dude.
Oh, yeah, Vinny K. Yeah. I remember back in the CBSI days, I remember his name. But to me, you're never going to have that same sort of parallel with comics. Like you always hear the situation, like, oh, if someone found this Action Comics in the basement, and oh no, then because their basement was the only basement that wasn't damp, or their only attic that it didn't yellow and brittle in there. Those stories are far and few in between. I think card industry, a lot of things like that is where you're seeing more of these sort of hyper valuable cards, and that's why you just can't find them, right? Like comics, you always have a chance to find profit in comics at places. You just have to know where to dig, and that's part of, I'm going to keep building up Half Price Crook, because I feel like he's going to be joining us soon. And again, we did a tech run yesterday, so he's going to make it. But as usual, I have more prepared than we're going to need, Nico. I always like to have a lot going. So let's take a look a little bit. Let's look at some news. Let's get that off. So I spoke about this. I spoke about how these double page panel previews, and I'm showing this one again because what I've really been doing is going back through books, and this came from the History of Marvel Universe 6, and we spoke about, like, we just saw this week in the Avengers, and Marvel books were back this week. We saw Avengers, which was a decent tale of basically Moon Knight going back, this Age of Khonshu, and taking the powers from all of the Avengers who were actually the original 1 million BC Avengers. So he went up against Thor, and Thor's hammer was made of moon rocks, which is what Uru is originally made of. So Moon Knight was able to control Thor's hammer. We saw him go up against Black Panther, who just sort of surrendered and said, okay, I'll give it to you. We saw him go up right in the beginning against Iron Fist. So he was going against all Doc Strange as well. So he's going against all these 1 million BC Avengers. He's trying to get their powers for some point. He still hasn't gone up against all of them. I think there are 2. He still has to. He talked about the Starbrand baby, who we just saw come back. So we know Jason Aaron has been planning this. And I forget who the 7th Avenger he didn't get to yet. But so he's taking, so we're going to see the 1 million BC Avengers come back into play again. I've spoken about that book. I've spoken about Legacy, that 1 to 200, the Diodato double spread. The top over here, the Half-Breed, that's all about Empire, which is coming up. We saw Outlaw Generation released already. This woman up top.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah.
Are there graphics for this?
You got to tell me when I'm. So here we go.
I was trying to pay attention to what you're saying, and then I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. Generally, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully the chat will say that. So we're just up at the top. Age of Khonshu. Again, we're seeing the Hulkling with the Half-Breed. We've spoken about that more than enough. Outlaw Generation, which is the.
What we see is the Galactus head.
Yeah, so Galactus head here, but you see over, you see on the other side. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand because I'm not smart about
stuff.
Yeah. All right, so those little heads, the pink things, are what?
Yeah, so here we go. So these are all, nice, seem a little bigger, right? So I'll put that all up. Yeah, so these are all sort of, Franklin Richards was showing the future with Galactus of what's going to happen. And so everything is, and so in the middle, this one's really interesting. And the reason I show this is because Venom 25 came back. So we see this King in Black, and King in Black is what, people have been talking about Null. And I'm going to show you in a minute what a really interesting part of that. We also had the wedding of Tony Stark and Emma Frost is going to be happening. We haven't seen that. The tragic fate of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones' second child down in the bottom. Defenders of Tomorrow. I spoke about that already. With this is Primax, who appeared in Captain America. And then we see these names, Threadneedle and Warbird. And then we see the fate of Mephisto, right? So we know Mephisto's been building up, but the things I'm interested in primarily are... So we see this character up top. This is the new Warbird that's coming out in Kurt Busiek's The Marvels. This is the old school Vision. You're seeing this all right, Nico?
Absolutely. Yeah. This I understand.
Yeah, and then this character over in the bottom left, this I think is Threadneedle. I've been looking at this character. I thought maybe he might be connected to the Thinker somehow. And so I've been looking back for like images of these characters because these are going to be new characters. This Warbird, I was thinking might be the daughter of Bishop and Deathbird from another reality that we saw. I don't know if it's going to be a new character, but that costume was very similar in a way. Threadneedle, I'm not sure of. We see that Warbird again on the cover of the first issue of Marvels, and then we see that Threadneedle on the cover of issue 2. So these were things that were teased way back by Mark Waid and Javier Rodriguez in that spread. So I continue to say, go back and look at these double page spreads. This was the big one now, Nico. This was the one that sort of set the internet ablaze. This was the double page spread in, and I'm gonna go even deeper into some of this. So.
That was the Venom 25 one?
So this was Venom 25. There's a double page spread of...
I'm not completely moronic.
Yeah. So for those who didn't read, it's basically Eddie Brock is talking to us at the end of that Venom Island story, but really he's talking to us at the same time he's talking to the Avengers and saying, I need your help. So I don't know if that's going to be a segue into him being, like almost like when Secret Avengers, when we had the Agent Venom part of them. But he was talking to the Avengers the whole time, and we got this spread. And so we see the Maker in the bottom left corner. We know the Maker's been trying to bring a symbiote. It might be coincidence that we see Virus, and we spoke about Virus last week up in the top left corner. I know Larry has had a great theory on this, and I'm sure he'll have something in the chat that what he thinks about this character. I was thinking maybe it was an Ultimate Universe character, sort of maybe the Ultimate Universe Eddie Brock, who we haven't seen since Dr. Doom grabbed him in did something with him back, and there was a cyborg as well. So I start to think about that in the maker and this project oversight. That's part of the Council of Reeds. Remember, that's from Fantastic Four, Jonathan Hickman. So maker's a big part of what's going on in the Marvel Universe. I know now I'm going to key in on some of those bigger parts of the spread. We know Wrath is going to be huge. Again, Donny Cates is talking about this Web of Venom Wrath one-shot. We see Wrath taking on the dragon or T-Rex, guns blazing here. Then in the middle, and I'm going to go back to us a minute and talk a little more about this one and put us sort of in this view. There we go. So I saw this and I didn't have a great high res look on this. I thought I saw the colors and immediately I'm like, oh, is that Kang? Like, and I'd heard talks maybe about a Celestial being involved. And I'm like, oh, that's the Kang color scheme. Are they gonna? And Kang has never been Venomized. And I'm like, but no, because Kurt Busiek actually responded to me and said, no, he doesn't. Kang doesn't have, and he knows Kang because he did Avengers Forever. He doesn't have that flap on the bottom. That flap, of course, is very, very reminiscent of Celestials. And so I'm going to go back again and.
Wow.
I started to think about, first of all, Nowhere, because we know Null has a connection with Nowhere. Nowhere is the head of the Celestial. And I remember that purple-green color scheme there at first, right, in the head of the Celestial. Nowhere, of course, first appearance was Nova 8, where we've spoken about that book, that beautiful Adi Granov cover. But then I was talking to a couple other people online, and we looked at this sort of 10 Celestial spread. And of course, if you look right spread in the middle, and people have spoken about this before, we're not breaking news here. There are people who are much more into Celestials. The two who have sort of star cod pieces were Arisham the Judge, who we've seen a lot, and the rest doesn't look like him. But then maybe in slightly similar colors, Zeron the Tester. And he has the same sort of bands on his legs. He has that same sort of star on the bottom. I don't know how that got in there. We'll go back to that in a minute, but
see, when that happens to me, there's nudes.
Yeah, that's great. So that Zeron the Tester has been in other books in a big part. He actually got destroyed in a story with Galactus. So he's been featured before. And I know I have another picture of him side by side, but we're pretty sure that this Zeron the Tester is going to be totally venomized, I think, is what's going to happen. So the symbiote. So again, digging into these double panels, digging into these pages, and I put Larry up here as well while I'm doing this. So Venom 27 set in 2099. So he thinks that Spec may lie in there. So Larry was thinking that there's a group that way back from Lethal Protector 2, and Larry's just like me. Larry is reading books and going back and making connections. And look, I love to throw things out there too. And the great thing about it is it's speculation. You don't know if it's going to happen or not. I call it conspecture, right? We're not sure if it's going to happen. So let's go a little further. I'm going to go back to that. Well, while I'm on there anyway, I'm going to tell you again, Leo Colapietro. I keep bringing him up again and again. Once it's taken in by one of the big two. Let's go a little bigger on that. The details. He does everything digitally. He's really upped his Twitter presence. I love this guy. He's been doing some Thanos, some Darkseid. He's really great in terms of like light and dark and flame, but doing Xenoscope again, when I see an artist that I love, and that's from like Mike Del Mundo, going back to Scan, a lot of people that I've looked at and said, these are ones to keep an eye on. This is one to keep an eye on. Again, I've spoken about him before, but going back to that double page spread. So the other thing in there was, we saw this character, and a lot of people right off the bat said, that's Wrath. It has to be Wrath. But it didn't make sense because Wrath was already in the picture. They've spoken about this sort of King in Black. Now, King in Black, of course, Null. We've heard him called the Black King before. But if you look at sort of how these, costumes look, a little different, but we don't know who this is going to be yet, this King in Black. It could be the character that popped out of that History of the Marvel Universe. We are going to find out more about the Exelon. So these are those sort of things that I want to look at. Here's one final spread I want to look at. And again, I just put these on because we were waiting maybe to see Half Price Crook coming in. This was from King Thor 4. And I'm going to go back and talk about that a little more with us in there. King Thor 4 was the end of sort of Jason Aaron's run on Thor. This was sort of his culminating big run. And we saw everything from Thor Cop. We saw a Thor planet where basically Thor had become a planet at the far ends of the universe. But these were things that were teased in that book that are going to come later on. And when you look at this, Number one up top, you can see Mephisto with this the Time Stone. We saw this already back with Iron Man in that Iron Man book where he was thrown in the past, and I showed a page to Nick from Key Collector, and there was another page of Mephisto in this Time Stone. So somewhere in between, he's had this Time Stone. We know right now that it's in the hands of Overtime, and I'm going to talk about who that character is a little more in a minute. We also see on the bottom over here all of these different sort of characters, and it says here, and the day that our stories collide and entwine, the ones from long ago. So this is going to tie in a little more to the past, and we see, I don't know if you know this guy on the bottom down here, but this is from way back before Namor and Atlantis, back in the day. What's his name? Not Orion. Gosh, I'm forgetting his name right now. But he was sort of involved in like back in the sinking of Atlantis back in the day, etc. And down here we see this future group, and we see Hulk with with Thor's hammer and the Cap mask, and then we see those three sort of the three Thor granddaughters again, who I think are playing a huge part in the future of Thor. And then in the back we see that Phoenix Wolverine, who I spoke about a little last week when I showed that scan I had. And then we also see, if you blow these up and you look further, go back and look at that King Thor 4 book, there are all the stories that have been told from Thor in the past and the present story, sort of looking at these. So this gives you hints, and this is my favorite part of comic reading, comic speculation, finding the hints that we're dropping and going back and speculating on that. So speaking of that, the big one this week was, and I'm going to go back full for a minute, the big thing this week, and I know you follow my lead a lot, Nico, when I talk about what are the stuff going on modern wise, story wise. This is where Nico's sort of just like, oh, I'm going to get a croissant at this time.
I enjoy learning about it. I remember the future Thors.
Yeah,
the little female Thor there. I went out and bought, I don't know, half a dozen or a dozen of the first appearances, her first appearance.
Is it seven? Seven Thor, God of Thunder. Well, first of all, that whole run.
But I can see it in my head.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Run. I pulled issues from that run over and over again because I picked those runs up, and there are beautiful variants in that run as well. But the big thing this week, people were talking about Black Winter, because we got a reveal of a cover from Nick Klein, who's doing the art on Black Winter, and all of a sudden, one of my other friends on Twitter put up something and said, why is Thor, the new Thor 2 from Donny Cates, why is that all of a sudden become the first Black Winter? And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. People are listing that, and that book's starting to heat up a little. So I went back and I looked at that Thor run. And just to give some context, this was back November 25th, 2019. I won't say who it went to. I put that little flame up there. And I said,
I can't see it.
After reading the description,
wait, I can't see it. I can't see it.
Damn it. I said, so there you go.
Thanks.
So after reading the description, I'm betting Thor 169 is about to get retconned. The Creeping Plague will become whatever the Black Winter is. So this was back in November, right? And the only reason I thought that was because I remember Donny Cates saying, I can't believe they've never gone back in the Kirby run and expanded upon what happened here. And the only thing I could think of off the bat that would fit that description was this sort of page. And I'll show you, and sort of, this was way back. And if you can't really read the text, it says, and this is, for those who don't know, this is Galactus's home planet. And it says, we must prepare for the inevitable. Our race must die in a manner befitting Ta. Yes, the Creeping Plague has come to Ta, and the greatest brains in all the galaxy were powerless to find a cure. It's hopeless. Nothing that lives can escape that plague. Even now, the visit screen shows distant species struck down in their prime, and each coming moment brings it closer to Ta. All we can do is wait and watch. And why I think that's so interesting is because this is really the first true Black Plague, now that's the Black Winter, that's being retconned into what we're seeing. So
what's Thor 169 for people who don't know? You want to show them a picture?
Yeah, that is correct, and I'll go back to that. So Thor 169 is where we first hear about that. That's sort of, I know you love those books. It's sort of, and this was sort of the origin of Galactus. We find that out over there. And that's where my mind started thinking. And then I said, okay, there has to be more to this. So I started looking. I looked back to Where Past the Black Stars, right? And this had nothing to do with it, just so you know. So you had to do a little hit or miss. This Black Stars was actually about these 5 planets that traveled around, destroying other planets for power. And then it turns out 4 of the planets are already dead, and the 5th planet is like, oh, I didn't know, and then they just left, and we never saw them again. So I started thinking about that. But then I went back and said, okay, let's go back and let's go back a little and look at Thor 1, Thor 2, Thor 3, Thor 4. We're about to get Thor 5, and see where do we actually have more on the Black Winter. And again, am I the biggest guy saying go out there and spec money on Black Winter? No, because I know some people think it's going to be a big thing. People are going null crazy right now. I think I got more likes than ever when I put up null covers on my Twitter. Like I do hours of research. I get like 6 likes. I put up 8 pictures of null on covers. I get 200 likes. I mean, it's crazy.
What's the joke that if we publish the Declaration of Independence on Facebook, you'd get 6 likes, but if you have a girl in a bikini top, she'll get 6,000.
There you go. No one ever went broke underestimating the American public's taste, Nico. So this is issue 1, and what we find out about Black Winter, the Black Winter here is Black Winter takes the form of whatever your death will be. So Galactus is retelling what actually happened in Thor 169 when he first saw it, and he actually encountered the Black Winter twice. The only one to actually survive and make it through. So the first time he saw this, it looked like this. So to me, Black Winter appears what you perceive your end, your demise is going to look like. So this was issue 1. So we see that he says, I saw it again. Do you know what I saw, Norin? What I saw as the embodiment of my own true death. And then he says he saw Thor, and that's why he ends up making Thor his sort of herald. But he calls it here. He says the frost, the star plague. It is not a being. Each galaxy or entity that gazes into it perceives it differently, just as I'm perceived differently by each of you. So we see Galactus differently based on how we perceive him. The Black Winter, however, when you gaze into it, takes the form of your true death. I've gazed into it twice now. So this is all from 1. And for me, okay, it's only going to be 2 things. This is either the first appearance. Okay, now here's issue 2. Issue 2. You see a planet being destroyed, one of the planets, because they're trying to protect these planets that the Black Winter is going after. And now we see someone looking out, and they see these sort of fingers closing in and crushing down. So they're calling this now the first appearance of Black Winter. So you can't have that first appearance in book 1 not be the first appearance, and these hands now all of a sudden be it, because it's what you're looking at. And then we have, of course, the end of issue 4, where you see this. So if you're going to go for it here, we've already named him in issue 1. We've seen what he looks like to Galactus. We've seen the hand in issue 2. It either has to be this issue or it has to be issue 1. It's not going to be issue 2, okay? So let's not further confuse things. And I'm not a cynical guy. Well, yes, I am. My point is, Thor 1, I think, had a run of, I want to say 169,000. Issue 2 dropped almost 100,000. It had some high ratio variance. So, of course, you have people who are always going to have their own interest and said, I stocked in issue 2. I got some of those higher ratio variants. This is the book that I'm going to go after. And that's something that happens in the comic industry. And that's something I wanted to talk, we're talking about state of the comic industry. It's whoever says it loudest sometimes is what happens.
No question about it.
Industry, am I right? I mean, it's a little crazy. So I thought that was worth going into a little, Nico, a little further into that. And now, I've even spoken about in the past, like Nick from Key Collector and I, we have these like 20, 30 message threads back and forth. We don't really talk. We just chat through email when we get to it. He was big on this character, Hunger, from Starlin's run. We already know that Starlin's been, I'll use the term homage and not ripped off. And I'm going to show you here. We know that he's been sort of homaged, not ripped off by Cates, but okay, we've seen this character pop up, Hunger, very similar sort of backstory. I've spoken about the character Oblivion back from the Iceman books. Again, someone who's gone through sort of destroying worlds. This is not a new concept. Seeing these sort of characters, these sort of omniscient characters. I even talked about the Abyss with all Null and Void. I think these are all going to tie in at some point. And Larry brings in Black Galaxy Saga from the 90s. These are all sort of stories that have been again and again sort of repeated. Are they going to connect together? They're retconning them more than ever. It's very tough to spec on something because we don't know what the true first appearance is. So unless it's a brand new character, and again, that Virus character, it's going to end up being someone we know already. So is it when he becomes Virus? Is it that cover? Is it that the next issue when he comes out? Or is it the first appearance? And we spoke about this even with Jackpot, and we spoke about this with Mania, who became a whole nother character when she became Scream, Andy Benton. These are the things that are really driven by it's sort of like who holds the power, who watches the Watchmen. And I think it's a very dicey area of deciding who has these first appearances. And I know people always go back to 180, 181. Come on. Yeah, it's looking at our modern spec and what sort of happens with that. And that's what I think you have to be very careful. And again, a lot of these are just flashes in the pan, right? Wolverine's daughter, I always bring up again and again, Rain, right? She ain't coming back. I'm sorry, she ain't coming back, no matter what you say. Let's flash back to so went through there. And
I missed my chance to say I fucking told you, but I'm sorry.
You can still say that retroactively. We can cut that in. By the way, I love this Thor 1 cover. This was one of the lesser knowns. It's not, it's not a huge ratio variant, but it's a Scalera Thor Black Surfer. And
I love it.
And Kate's just said again, and this is one I haven't seen a lot, and I sort of love this cover. I think this is a great cover just to look at, even for the PC. So I want to talk about a couple other news items. Infinite Destinies, we're going to see that happening again now. I think it's more interesting when actually I put us up on the side as I'm doing this. So, as long as it's not big. So there are going to be all these annuals. The Infinity Stones, we've spoken about this in the past. We're about to see Iron Man annual with Quantum, who's from Miles Morales, issue 8 and 9, when Miles Morales is taken and sort of experimented on. Captain America annual is about Overtime, the guy Hector Bautista, who got the Time Stone. Thor Annual 1 is all about the new spirit of corruption, who's Danny Ketch. Black Cat Annual is White Fox, who we saw in that Contest of Champions 1, where she's on the cover. Beautiful cover. Avengers Annual 1, really interesting. I'm waiting to get some news on that, but it says guest starring Classified. Miles Morales, Spider-Man Annual 1. That's one of the things I just dug up the other day. I found three big copies.
Oh, there you go.
All right, I'm back. I found sort of 3 copies of that Amulet first one from Ms. Marvel. These were $2 a piece, issue 13. So he could end up, he probably has one of the Infinity Stones, maybe the Power Stone, perhaps, because we know that Star has a Reality Stone, and she's in Amazing Spider-Man Annual 2. And then finally, Guardians of the Galaxy Annual 1 is Prince of Power, who we saw introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, the new Al Ewing run. So these are all new characters who may end up being the new sort of wielders of the Infinity Stones. And again, it's supposed to be battles between established characters and new characters. So we may see some established characters that we know already end up being part of this Infinity Watch, and we're going to see some of the newer characters. So these are cheap grabs, cheap buys. Go back and find this again.
Hey, Gary, what's the first appearance of White Fox?
White Fox is Contest of the Champions 1, and there's a beautiful cover. I think it's I'm not sure if it's a Liana Liu cover or a Yoon cover, but it's her front and center on the cover. I've always loved that book. That's a gorgeous book. Contest Champions 1. She's a Korean she works for the Korean sort of.
I remember that part.
Yeah. So that's one to look at. But so they'll all be appearing in these annuals coming up soon. I brought up that Quantum, Miles Morales, Spider-Man issue 8 and 9 is where that Quantum character is. Very interesting character. And they think that maybe the Space Stone, based on what I saw in Newsarama on there, these are what those annuals look like. This character on the left is Quantum in the Iron Man annual, and that's that Overtime who showed up in the Infinity Stone, that one shot, Infinity Stone Prime or one of them.
Whatever. That's a very strange looking character.
Yeah, very much. And I'm guessing maybe that character. These are all sort of anti-heroes and villains who have ended up. So far we've seen Star, this character. These 2 characters on the cover here, these are the characters who have popped up with these stones. So it's almost like anti-heroes getting this power. So instead of heroes having it, sort of anti-heroes.
I'm just saying, the green thing.
Yep. I'm going to go back to it again. Hold on. Yep.
looks like a burlesque outfit or something. Weird
Yeah,
looking, man.
I don't know. It's these designs. I hope they're not all going to have similar designs. He got that design.
Horrible.
He got that right at the end of that series where Loki was jumping through with Wolverine on the ship, and that was his before he disappeared. He had that costume at the end. So who knows? But Mephisto, don't forget, Mephisto is into playing this. So I'm thinking maybe it's Mephisto in the Infinity Watch. Maybe we're gonna have something like that where he has his own sort of group of miscreants who have the Infinity Stones, right? And causing what a great take on that, almost like a villain group, or not villains, but morally ambiguous, let's call them, right? Like that's politically correct. You know, they don't want to be called villains anymore.
Yeah. Well, that outfit he's got on is ambiguous too. It's
a crime of fashion, right, Nico?
It's ambiguous as well.
So your boy Jimmy Palmiotti tweeted yesterday. Yeah, there he is. So he tweeted yesterday, coming soon. Oh, and I'm like, oh, I started thinking again of Extraction and See You Dad, where some people made some great money off those books. Boom. Random Acts of Violence. I've been holding on to these for a while. So looks like a B movie. I saw the poster. It's actually directed by Jay.
Glorious.
Directed by Jay.
I don't even have them. I'm gonna have to go buy them.
Yeah, I don't know if everyone knows Jay Baruchel. He used to star on one of those Judd Apatow shows.
Okay.
Undeclared, I think, maybe. But he's like a really geeky kid. He's been on a lot of those Judd Apatow shows as well. So that's one. Cheap buy. Again, who
Random Acts of Violence? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Random Acts of Violence. Who thought like anyone was going to make money off See Your Dad, which again was in a graphic novel form, and this is like a bound book. You could sort of see as well. But again, cheap buy. That's the poster, right? Glorious, as you said. Jesse Williams, Jordana Brewster, who the last movie I saw her in was Robert Rodriguez's The Faculty. Jay Baruchel, the guy I spoke about, and he directed it as well. But maybe it's going to be that cool sort of grindhouse type of picture. This is sort of very dark book. All right, so just be prepared for that if you watch the movie as well. Here's another one that I've loved, been a big proponent of. Duncan Jones saying Rogue Trooper is done, and we are very happy with it. Working on something different now, but we're ready to rock and roll. And of course, I spoke about these books way back. I'm not going to be able to go back and buy those initial Rogue Trooper books that appeared in those big oversized. But what you can get are those beauties, right? These sort of Rogue Trooper from Quality Comics. So I grabbed a couple of those. I've shown these in the past. This was his first sort of solo book he popped out, and this is a UK book. But first sort of like American appearance was the IDW Rogue Trooper book, and I think this was the retail incentive cover. You could probably still have these cheap Rogue Troopers on no one's mind right now at all. Final thing as we're running through the news over here. Let me go back to here. I'm getting so great at this. I'm a huge Sean Murphy fan. His next creator driven book is going to be this thing called The Plot Holes. And please go in, check this out. Go look at it in all its sort of. Sean Murphy's amazing. I love his White Knight universe. Which
I agree 100%. So when's this come out?
So he just showed these over there. I think this right now is going to be, and yes, thank you, Pat. We spoke a lot about that as well earlier on the show. If you're just tuning in now, just about what's going on in the world, we have not sort of shifted it aside. We're just into the comic zone. This, I believe, and I'm not sure. I think this is a Kickstarter, but I'm not sure about it. Go look up Sean Murphy, The Plot Holes. Continue to support this guy. He used to be a big proponent of. I'm not going to draw anyone else's books right now because I'm a writer and an artist. I just want to draw what I want to draw. I think he had not a great experience. You know Sean Murphy back from Joe the Barbarian. You know him from what he did with
Punk Rock Jesus.
Say again?
Punk Rock Jesus.
Punk Rock Jesus, The Wake with Scott Snyder. So he's worked with some of the best writers around, but he wants to do his own stuff. Go check this out. It looked really cool. I want to, let's see, do I have anything else news? Oh, so news this week. Doc Afra, right? This book is going for about 35 to 55, I think. Had some new characters. I showed some panels of pages. I don't even know if these people are new or what, but that you have sort of that woman in the
Star Wars nerds say that they're absolutely new, so okay. I trust them.
Yeah, so you have Ta 418, which is like this robot. You have this woman who Doc Afra used to work, was her professor back in the day. You have this one who is a student, who I think we're going to find more about than we necessarily knew. And And then you had the main villain come after that as well. He's sort of like this like bougie, rich. I read it was. You know what? I've been enjoying, like, I enjoy these Doc Afra books. I like her. She's sort of, speaking of an anti-hero, she's sort of like Indiana Jones and I guess Belloc more. She's like the Belloc version of, if you were put her in a Star Wars comic, right? You know, that's my thing. Borderlands. Let's talk about that. Kate Blanchett will play the iconic Borderlands character, Lilith, in the Borderlands. I went right back and I grabbed a bunch of those Borderlands Origins books. I found a beautiful full set on a nice little one of my internet honey holes where they were selling all 4 books together for $59. I did it. I grabbed them because I think Borderlands is just like one of those books that has a huge built-in audience. Kate Blanchett brings a bit of cachet to the
crossover appeal.
Huh?
Right. Huge crossover appeal.
Oh, yeah.
Video game people, and now you're going to have the movie people.
And then you bring in and the comic contingency
with an A-list celebrity.
Yeah, exactly. Just like we just saw with Charlize Theron, most recently with Old Guard. So Peach Momoko, things going crazy. That book that came out last week, Blackwood. Hopefully you cashed out on that before the Undercutters came in. One that's not as much on the radar because this was a store variant for the Archie Forever Sabrina Something Wicked, which oddly enough, Archie Comics is just releasing the regular versions this week. I got a Stadium Comics variant version of a Spider-Man cover, but this is a Peach Momoko, obviously Bewitched cover. Really cool. This is one limited. I think it was like 3,000. I think it's going for about 59, and not a lot of copies on eBay. But that's a Peach Momoko cover I can get behind, even though a lot of her stuff I'm not a huge proponent of. That's that Ghost Rider cover. This is one Scotty Young Vampirella.
That's sick, dude.
Yeah, I'm a huge Scotty Young guy. But that's a gorgeous cover. I keep trying to go back and find it exactly where it was, but I'm gonna have this. I'm gonna get that cover. It's Dynamite, of course. So, you know, Dynamite covers are like print to order, but they're covered. You know, just because they're print to order or whatever, or printed by what the demand is, that doesn't mean the covers are easy to find. Very different than a lot of those Perillo covers or some of the painted covers we see. And I know there are Scotty Young collectors.
Yeah, if you figure out what that is, let me know, man. That's cool.
I will. It definitely isn't. If you go back and look at Vampirella Dynamite, it was and the reason why it's hard to find because it was solicited, and then with all COVID, it was resolicited. But that's one that was in again. And I tell you, I hold on to these in my sort of screenshots. Books coming out next week. So number one, we're going to see Leviathan. This is a Alex Maleev cover for Leviathan. So doing a quick run through of what's coming up. It's almost primarily DC books coming out this week, only Marvel trades and a couple of indie books. This is that Flash Raphael Grandpa cover. What a great cover, right? Like the Flash stretching and exercising and getting ready. He's also doing Wonder Woman covers. I love seeing Raphael Grandpa, who doesn't get enough Big Two work, but watch out for his work as well.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Does he do sequential art?
I have not seen him do any sequential art on any big books. I have a Strange Tales cover. I have a few other covers that he's done that are really weird. He and Paul Pope, I think, have a little similar style. Sometimes I see their stuff and get confused. And what's funny was I know Larry was talking about that a lot of these B covers, people, retailers and industry are shying away from and going more to the A covers lately.
Yeah, it's perfect. There's an opportunity again there.
Yeah, and that's what I feel, especially some of the ones that are going to fall into the wayside, be under ordered again. This I just brought up because this book is Justice League Odyssey. What's so funny for anyone who's been following this book, the only character that's still really front and center is Jessica Cruz's Green Lantern. Everyone else, like we've seen a new version. We've seen legacy characters pop in. Darkseid has been very much involved in this as well. But this is a Jose Ladron cover. And Jose Ladron, I collect. He's one of those guys I buy everything of. Probably not his best work, but I love seeing Ladron on these sort of DCB Big Two covers. And Justice League Odyssey has been a really interesting read. It's actually picked up lately really well. Dustin Nguyen is doing the cover for Legion of Superheroes. Why this is big is because we're going to see that Gold Lantern popping up again that we spoke about a little last week. Oh, sorry. This is a sick cover. Kyle Hutz doing the Man Bat 2 cover. Talk about a book that's going to be tough to find. B cover, Man Bat 2.
Wow.
Mostly black. To me, Kyle Hutz, just like one of the most underrated, big Hulk guy. He's seeing some of his covers across the run. This is one that will definitely be. This was already ordered by me. Another underrated guy, Michael Janin cover. Janin did a lot of those Justice League dark covers early on in the New 52 run. Wonder Woman is, they have not missed a beat in terms of Jenny Frison going off and seeing some of the cover artists that have come on, even when they had that Sharon Karama cover. I know they have a Raphael Grandpa cover coming up for her.
That one's gorgeous, man.
Yeah, I love that, and again, something just about those colors, right? Like streaming through, and I'm very color central, like orange covers, red covers.
Yeah,
again,
this it's the tone.
Say again.
It's the tone. You're 100% correct, because the line art's kind of trash, but the tone is
that's
100. 100.
Sanford Green, who I always love his work. He's on Far Sector. Far Sector, just a book that I'm buying for the read, and I know.
Yeah, and that's how you do both tone and line art. That's gorgeous, dude. Yeah, although I don't know what's up with that one hand.
Yeah, we hinky hand syndrome, right? Hinky hand syndrome. We always call
really
that.
A thing, dude. It's really a thing
as well. So again, as you can see, mostly DC books. Let's see. Do I have anything else? Oh, the store variant. Yeah. I like it. I'm a sucker.
I am too. Might be the best Catwoman cover ever.
I've looked at all the Catwoman covers, and the funny thing is, I'm a big Travis Charest fan. I don't love his book. Adam Hughes doing his typical stuff. Jim Lee, beautiful cover. You're seeing all the great. These are the 80th anniversary books. This is a store variant that will be joining my my short box of gorgeous covers. I love Shannon Mayer, of course, doing this. Blowing it up.
His best work.
Yeah.
Unquestionably.
And I care.
Yeah, I screwed up. I didn't buy any. I'll catch it after it sinks. There was a big number on it too. I forget. It was like 3,000 or something.
Oh yeah, but that's fine. This is not one I'm hoping to make $1 on.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't buy those store variants hoping to buy $1.
Shit, I'd like a poster.
Oh yeah, talk about posterized, and just look at the eyes, right? Like the eyes are just
pop, dude. Gorgeous, so gorgeous. The sun in the background. I mean, and we're the only guys who aren't staring at her chest.
I didn't even notice. I just hear her saying, "My eyes are up here." That's all I hear.
Right, winner, chicken dinner, dude. Yeah, Patty lips. Shannon Mayer, if he continues to do work that's this good, he'll leave the rest in the dust.
And that's a huge thing, right? Like people who only follow covers, like they're like, oh, that's a dude who drew that. Yeah, that Shannon Mayer is a dude, and it's funny with some people, like you don't know until you hear or see them, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't know, who even drew that. So know about your artists too. So when you go meet them at Comic-Con, this was my my indie cover of the week, and this was for, of course, Red Mother. This was the Red Mother 5 Wando B cover for that as well. Again, I'm drawn to colors. I'm drawn to sort of like that flame background over there. Wasn't a whole lot out this week. The only other book coming out this week was from Image. We spoke about it. Nailbiter Returns. I showed that 9.8 I got last week, and then I had a couple people come on as well and show me like they've gotten second prints of a 9.8. I think my buddy Wolf Warner, who does a great, I hope to see him coming back to do his podcast where he talks about books coming up with a cool music beat behind it. But I'm sure he's as troubled as I am right now, living in the New York area. He's an educator, a Brooklyn educator. So I hope he's doing all right.
We should get him on the show.
Oh, yeah. I definitely.
I'd like to meet him.
Yeah. We don't want to set a precedent. And guess what? Guess who's just on time here? This is great. I'm going to bring a Half Price Crook in. I'm going to get rid of my share from the stream. I'm going to show again. Also, here's another book. I showed the 9.8 of the Nailbiter 1. I believe this Ghosted 9 is the first preview appearance of Nailbiter as well. So I've been talking a lot today, as usual, throwing a lot of good and bad advice out to you. But I'm going to bring on someone who, if you've ever had the pleasure of seeing one of his hauls, I'm going to sit down and bow a little. I'm going to bring him into the feed. I've never put a third person in. I'm adding him to the stream. Boom. Look how easy that was. Without further ado, I'm going to let Nico do a little intro here of our friend Jessup. I had a great talk with him yesterday. We're going to do a little bit of an interview. I'm going to fill my coffee up, give my mouth a rest for a minute. But without further ado, Nico, why don't you do some introductions? And I'm going to remove myself from the stream for a minute while I get coffee.
Good morning, my friend.
Hey, what's happening, George? How you doing? Sorry.
Good. Don't be. I see you've shaved.
Yeah, I had to go back to work last Thursday.
So for the uninitiated and the uninformed, I think you are the resident champion of back issue and dollar bin digging here in these United States of America. How do we find at Half Price Crooks? At Half Price Crook on Instagram? Do you have an IG page? I just see you on Facebook.
Yeah, I do. I don't really mess with Instagram all that much. I mean, I do have an Instagram, but yeah.
Okay, so it's just Half Price Crook on Facebook.
And it's I'm on Instagram, but like I said, I don't really update it all that much.
Okay.
Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
The guys in the chat will tell us if we need to adjust anything. So here's what I want to know. How the hell do you do it?
I just shop there all the time, man. Like if you're consistent and you're persistent, like you can pretty much figure out their inventory. And I don't know, how fast can you dig through 5 or 6 long boxes? Like it doesn't take all that long. If you're in there every day, I'm usually in at least 1 or 2 every day because there's 5 locations where I'm at. It doesn't take all that long to spin through, see what their inventory is. They put little price stickers that they date when they, process them on the sticker. So you can tell if they have new inventory or if they don't. And just pop in every day, check it out. And it really doesn't take that long to spin through. They don't really care about comic books there. It's not that's not their bread and butter. So they don't really care about it too much. If you kind of establish a relationship with somebody there, not hard to do. I mean, I'm in the hospitality business anyways. I'm a bartender, so making friends with people comes by pretty easy. I mean, that's it. There's not a whole lot of. I also apologize. I'm super hungover. Columbus
happens to the best of us.
Happens to all of us. Hey, do you think this is coffee? No, come on, down. Hair of the dog.
I'm almost about to go there. I thought I missed it. I woke up late.
Your timing was impeccable, I have to say. Absolutely. I had just finished running my mouth for about an hour, and Nico and I were talking a little bit about just the world in general. So now, to have you on, and like I said, I remember you back from the CBSI days, just like you were. We would see those halls and like, where is this guy? Where is he getting these books from? How do I get tapped into that sort of vein of great books? And I know you and I spoke a little yesterday about that as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, if you're just there a lot, the haters and the naysayers, I just have to say, like, I'll even tell you where my honey hole is. I don't really care. If you're not there when they bring things out or when they get in a collection, you just I miss it all the time. I mean, I don't remember. I'm not going to say his name, but he was also on CBSI. He's also local. I've done a show with him. Like we shared a booth at the Harper's show here in Columbus.
Oh, okay.
But he is the guy that found the Thorn #1 at a Half Price Books. Send it off the grade. Well, you're only going to find that book in Columbus, Ohio, anyways. It was Jeff Smith, right? He was a Columbus local. He wrote for the Lantern for Ohio State, and that's where Bone was created. So
they found the fucking Thorn graphic novel at a Half Price Books.
I don't think it was a graphic novel, but I don't know. I've never personally seen the book. It's that fucking hard to find. But yeah, he found $15 is what he paid for it. They had it in their collectibles box, marked up to $15. He found it. Yeah. Pressed it, sent it off the grade, came back a 9 or a 9.2, I think, and sold it for $5,000 on eBay. And listen,
wait a second. For the record, I saw that eBay sale and thought about trying to buy it. I thought it would go for a lot more and think it went cheap.
Yeah, I tried to. I reached out to. Well, he sent me a hangout on Messenger, and he's like, dude, look what I just found at Half Price Books. I'm like, get the fuck. And dude, also the timing couldn't have been more uncanny. It was right when they released the.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was right then. He found it like 3 weeks before. CGC turned it around super fucking fast. Sorry, turned it around super quick for him. $15 into $5,000 minus whatever grading fees and shipping would have been.
And can you talk a little bit about? I know we've spoken about the pros of living in a college, in an area where colleges are around, and where you have sort of a stock that replenishes sometimes. How would you describe that area? Because you talked about like you'd only find it in Columbus. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's 5 locations. One of the locations is a mile from campus. Apparently, people are still reading a lot of comics, unbeknownst to others that think, "Oh no, it's just the speculators that drive the comic industry." We have at least eight shops, probably more in Columbus, Ohio.
If I didn't have to do my interview last night, I was coming to Columbus. I was a half an hour away from Capital City Comics, and I was like, "Can I make it? Can I make it?"
It's they just moved locations, so their store is a little bit different now than it was before, but pretty much the same. Digging there is like no fun. They have a lot of back issues and whatnot, but they're all priced. They're overpriced. I mean, shout out to them. I like Cap City. Like I like going there. Their wall books are expensive and everything. You're probably not going to find anything there.
Okay, so the guy, no, you're 100% true. They know what they're doing. There's no deals to be had. But the guy that owns it, I think his name's Tony.
Yeah.
Tony used to be my delivery guy when I was like 12 years old. He worked for Capital City Comics, and I had like a retailer account. Like my friends and other like dealers that had fallen by the wayside from cards, we all banded together with like 12-year-old me, or I don't even know how old I was. Like, you think I'm short now? I was like just a little child midget with a big head. And Tony delivered my comics to me, to my house when I was a kid. So like, if I ever get a chance to just spend some money with him, I'm like, here you go, thank you. Join me on. I don't know how to do it. Take all my money. I gotta go.
Well, you've grown into your head, Nico. So that's good. That's good news. You have grown into your head. And so you speak a little bit. And the big thing I think with college kids is, it comes down to making poor decisions. And you're like, I have this ASM 300 that, I've had forever, but I don't have any beer money or weed money tonight. So, and I'm going to need money for wings after. So, and obviously I use a hyperbolic example, but that is what happens when it sort of comes down, and they're not going to be able to sell their really like lousy books. They're going to have to sell some books to make enough money to sustain them if they're not getting like a trust fund from mom or dad. That's what they're going to subsist on. They're going to go into things they have access to.
Yeah, I mean, what's the phrase? Rich people go broke every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you dumb that down to like the college level. It's like, yeah, I mean, even new books. I mean, I'm baffled at when I go in there and I'm going through. Sometimes the manager will go by and say, hey, we got in a new collection. You want to spin through them real quick? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, what? Who wouldn't want to do that? And it's just from going in there all the time. Like, they know me by name. I've made the joke with people before. Like, I remember, and this was probably 8 years ago, I was spinning through. I ended up buying a long box. So as I'm pulling up to the countertop with all of the books to cash out, the guy's like, hey, he's like, you want a box to put these in? I'm like, I have a long box in my truck. Give me a second, I'll go get it. So I go out, grab a long box in my truck, and come back in. And there's another long box of comic books sitting in on the other side of the counter. The checkout counter is like a rectangle. And I didn't see it on my way out, but I saw it coming back in. There's it's like probably 3/4 of a long box, and it's all older Batmans, like 300s through 300 to 400, that range. And I said, hey, do you mind if I go through this box that's on the ground? Like, did somebody just drop this off, or what's going on with it? I didn't even see it. And he's like, just take it. And I'm like, what? And he's like, Yeah, you just bought a long box. Just take them. Like, everyone deal with them. Like,
wow.
I'm getting my Waze set up for where is that you? Where is you live? Waze?
It's Lane Avenue, half price books.
Man.
So I actually invite the challenge. If you want to go pick my honey hole, go for it. It's Columbus, Ohio, Lane Avenue.
Yeah. And I had never heard of it. Yeah, I heard of Half Price Crook before I'd ever heard of Half Price Books. Just so you know, because I'm in New York and we don't have those. I'm like, I'm in Staten Island. I'm like, oh, I said that's a great name, but it takes on a new sort of meaning. And I didn't get to a Half Price Crook. I think we spoke yesterday until I actually was in Texas, maybe Houston, and I think it was actually Coy who I was asking Coy. I'm like, Coy, where can I go to in Houston? He's like, well, the Half Price Books are pretty picked over. Everything's picked over in that town, pretty much. But then when I got to Austin, I found some decent ones. But that's, college towns to me are huge. Even Asheville, I have to say, of all the places I've been to, Asheville was the best picking town I've ever been in.
I agree. I love picking books. Now, I'm banned from a shop in Fairmont, West Virginia. And like, for the record, if I had a brick and mortar store and I hired some fucking doofus to work there and I didn't fucking show up that much or know that much about comics, the last fucking person in the world I'd want in that store is me. So,
well, Nico, hey, no shoes, no shirts.
But yeah, for the record, I'll wear a fucking mask, right? They literally hate me though. They're like,
I think we have this conversation.
Yeah, another story for another time. But the point is, phenomenal books. I mean, I might have taken them all, but they'll replenish.
And Jessup, I think when you stay front center in the middle too, I think your audio is best from what I'm hearing too. So like when you're talking, when that mic is catching you dead, yeah, like when you're like, I'm trying to get you in your zone over there somewhere. Perfect over here.
Hey, so here's kind of my question. You think you can do this anywhere, right? I mean, it's not like Half Price Books has all the best books. You went to the basement sale at New Dimension, rocked them, had a hell of a good time, had made a couple friends, pulled out a Marvel Spotlight 5, paid a buck for it.
I mean, 85 cents if you break down the math. It was $292 for a long box, and you had to buy the long box blind. I was hesitant. I almost didn't go. My friend and I went back in January for their sale. I found that Dirty Pair Adam Hughes cover on that haul. But the problem was like we split a long box then. Between the two of us, we couldn't fill a long box. We were late to the show. Again, I was bartending the night before, came home and I had too much to drink. Couldn't get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to be there at the time that it was starting. So we got like a 4-hour late head start to it. I can't believe that book was still there. It wasn't like I went right to the D's either. I mean, they're very, New Dimension is very, what's the word I'm looking for? Organized. I mean,
and for the record, they've got a half a dozen retail locations. Todd is smart about comics. He hires people that are smart about comics. But they're also not pricks, right? Like if it's in their dollar section, they sell it to you for $1.
Yeah. I mean, when I pulled the Marvel Spotlight 5, I went up to Jason, I think is the manager that was there when I was there. Both times.
He's a gentleman. Yeah, he's a gentleman.
And I said, I just pulled this out. Obviously, you're either going to tell me I can have it or you can't. I mean, I didn't say that, but I just wanted to let you know I just pulled this out of there. And he's like, no, congratulations. Like, no qualms about it. Same thing with the Dirty Pair. He actually posed for a picture with me with the Dirty Pair, which he told me later he took some flack for, and I apologized. But I'm like,
that's smart business. Whoever gave him flack is dumb about business.
Exactly. They say they see those sales, and of course, at first I didn't believe him. Like, maybe you missed this one, but I mean, why wouldn't you see that sale? Like a guy like me is not going to come back and spend $300 blind to go through the same 500,000 comics I went through 4 months ago. It's not going to happen. I mean, if you don't put stuff in there. And basically what he told me was, he goes, they're pulling out like $50 plus books. Yeah, of course they're going to miss some things. I'm pretty sure they probably missed the Dirty Pair, because it probably came in a box. They probably didn't even look for it, because I've never seen that book.
Most people don't know what that book is.
Yeah,
or perhaps that. Yeah,
I mean, we know what that book is, but let's be honest. Most people don't. Even people that are really good at comics don't know that kind of stuff.
The Marvel Spotlight 5, I don't know how to even probably explain how that slipped through, but it is. Now listen, the centerfold is detached. I'm sorry, the cover is detached at the bottom staple. So that's maybe a 3.5 at best, but it's worth way more than 85 cents.
Oh yeah, seriously, the change in your cushion just got you. Yeah, I'll take a detached staple any day on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and they're having shout out to New Dimension. They're having a dollar sale on Saturday, not yesterday, but next Saturday at Elwood City. I don't know the details of it, but there's a guy who has got 6 retail locations. And if you live, in Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Morgantown, West Virginia, that kind of tri-state area, think about, rolling the dice and coming by. I know that Half Price Crooks already done serious damage, but I'll be there. At least you can be like, oh, yeah, he really is that short. Jesus Lord. Is that like a growth defect or something wrong?
And I think the opening up, right? Well, so now what we're starting to see, because we spoke a little about like opening up again, and I know you're going to be waiting for that bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich to get you back on track today, right? I can see you're like what I was like last week on this show, exhausted, hungover, and tired. So thanks for joining us. But what do you think about? So now we're starting to see. Like, I'm in New York, so we're one of the last places that's starting to open up, New York City. But we're starting to see some of these businesses opening up. Some of these shops, though, are never going to be able to open up again, I think, right? Some of these brick and mortars. But you guys have been okay over there, right? I mean, in terms of
every comic shop was able to reopen. Cap City's still open. Laughing Ogre's still open. Comic Town's still open. What's the other one? Flying Monkey is up. It's in Delaware. It's maybe an extra 10 minutes farther north. It's like a suburb of Columbus. But
Laughing Ogre and Flying Monkey. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And they're also, they all talk to each other. It's a pretty tight community in Columbus. There's also Pack Rat Comics. There's another one that Dan Piercy goes to because he works downtown. That is in the convention center downtown, and I don't know what it's called. It's actually a comic shop I've never been to because I went down there to go, and parking sucks because it's a convention center. I'm like, this isn't worth it to go into a little comic shop. So I never even made it there. But shout out to them, what they're called.
Gary, there's such good comics from like Pittsburgh to Akron to Columbus to Cleveland to Cincinnati to whatever the hell's in Kentucky. I don't even know, but I go there too.
Remember the old triptych?
No bullshit. And again, I'm much like the Half Price Crook. Like, come to our cities. We don't care. Have fun. It's amazing. And these shops need the help. I mean, if you're like looking to plan a little road trip, I'd absolutely do that kind of like 3-day weekend or whatever.
And this now more than ever with a lack of new product coming out, like so inconsistently. So even looking at Marvel's schedule through July, August, like there's not going to be a lot of new stuff on the shelf. So these stores are going to have to figure out how we're going to get people in for some of our back stock and for our trades and for non-comic stuff, because I don't think we're going to see a real return on a regular publishing schedule until September. We've seen a lot of books canceled. We've seen books go digital. We've seen whole lines of varieties sort of shut out. So that's why I think, we've been seeing a lot of selling going on eBay because people weren't able to get into the brick and mortars and they're just looking for product, looking for books. So I think we're going to continue to see that trend throughout the summer of people pushing toward those sort of back issues and looking for these books that, maybe under the radar, because we don't see a lot of new stuff coming. I mean, look, Marvel has no new books apart from trades next week, even though they had 5 books this week. this week, nothing new next week. So that schedule is going to be so crazy. I can't imagine at a retailer how I can survive and subsist when I don't have my new product coming in every week to sort of draw in the Wednesday Warrior crowd per se. So
I haven't even picked up my poll from Wednesday. Like, I haven't had time. We're at half staff at work. Like, some people didn't come back.
And you're back to work, right? I mean, you're back bartending, as we spoke about. Like, they're open. They're open for business.
Yeah, but I'm currently the only bartender. Like, the other two bartenders didn't come back, so I'm the only person literally open and close every day we're open. Yeah. And like, there were some shifts like Fridays and
Fuck,
Saturdays.
I drink too.
Fridays and Saturdays, dude, there's normally 2 bartenders, but now there's just me. So I would normally leave like halfway through that shift, and the other bartender would, come in a little later and shut it down. But now it's just me. So 5 closing shifts,
shots, right? Shots, but like shots for this round, and for you too, bartender, for you, barkeep.
Oh, it's not even that. I mean, there's half the bar stools there, but the carryouts is what's moving right now. Like, everybody, last night they enacted a curfew for Columbus, Ohio, because the downtown was rioting, and they at 7.
I'm glad I didn't drive up to see Tony last night.
Actually, you would have been fine. That's on the outskirts. It's just downtown that's crazy. Nothing outside of it. Doesn't really get much farther out of downtown. But everybody's phone went off at 7:15, and then the phones did not stop ringing for the next hour for to-go food. Like, it was literally everyone's plans were foiled. All right, cool. We're all just going to go eat inside and get our popcorn and watch the fires burn, I guess.
And that's kind of, and like I said, I mean, it's one of those things where we spoke about it. Like, the only good thing to come out of the COVID crisis quarantine is craft cocktails to go. Like they're delivering these great containers full of sangria and margaritas and no ice. There's a tip from the Comic Perspective. Tell them no ice when they're delivering, because if they're putting ice in there, come on.
Nobody with any sense to them would ever put ice in a to-go drink. We actually packed a separate cup with ice in it. So if
there we go. So keep on.
Oh shit.
So you spoke a little bit about that whole. Do you have?
Yeah, can we talk about your system? Because that's what we're gonna ask, right?
Rhyme or reason? Do you like? I can't imagine you have a list going in, but I imagine there are. Like, where do you always go first? So if you're going to a new shop, like, what's the first thing you do when you're walking in a shop and you're like, and you see right before you this, like, the land of milk and honey? What does Half Price Crook do?
Oh, I don't know. I'll look at the dollar bins real quick. I mean, of course I'll look at the wall. Like, I don't usually have money for the wall. I think I've talked to you both. I mean, I have 5 kids and I bartend, and my girlfriend doesn't work. So,
yeah.
It's not like I have a ton of money to go buy stuff off the wall. I mean, if there's something I'm dying for off the wall, sure, or I'll look at it, and if I can make $100 off of a wall book, I'll grab it. But I'm like Nico. I think he said before, it's like my business plan is a lot like yours, where I'm sitting on a lot of books, but I don't sell them.
It seems to be a big trend in this hobby. Like, all these speculators, but no one's selling the books. So,
so true.
Oh, I'm the worst, dude. I could have made so much money off of putting up, especially new books. I told you, Gary, about that. What was that Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur? Was it 28 or 29? I don't remember what it was, but it shot up to like $200, like, overnight, basically. And I'm sitting
Omnipotentus or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where's what's that guy's name you used to have that made that book plot? Jim. Comic Jim.
Oh, Jim.
Yeah, quit resting on your laurels. Theoretically, we'd all like to make some money. Put some content out there anyway.
He moved on to Null's bodyguards from the Black Surfer Black. So the bodyguards from Null's tomb are the next big thing to invest in, just so you know. But anyway, I digress as always. But we were talking about that before you came on, about our biggest regrets, and like people were saying, you can never look back and say, oh, I could have done this or I could have done that. It's more, Nico said, it's more like what I left behind in the there that I could have jumped on, right?
Dude, I have 3 copies. They're super minty. After I'm on Google Hangouts. Like, there's a group of us that are still on Google Hangouts that have a group thread. and somebody popped that up and like, yeah, I think it was Philip Chung. Shout out to Philip Chung. He's like, oh yeah, dude, this book's skyrocketing. I'm like, dude, I have 3 of those. I pulled them out because I had, at that point in time, I had all my comics in my garage. I was having like a comics garage sale, and
for the record, Philip Chung is the best, like, good-heartedest, like, kindest dude. Period.
I love him. He is between him and
like I would make him my power of attorney after I met him for like 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, sure, here.
I trust you. Here,
I trust you. You're like the most decent human being I've ever met.
Oh, dude, he's great, man. We'll have to invite you guys to that hangout. It's great. I'm sure everybody has like that group of hangouts where there's like, you know, a dozen people, and you just, when you're having a bad day, you just.
Yeah, we went in.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I already have 17 that I don't follow. I'll ignore you guys too.
Oh, dude, like I said, there's probably 12 that.
But it's fun when you need one. You're just like, what can I talk about?
Yeah. So what we have in common all in the chat is nobody sells their books. So this is great. So that's
so true.
So I have 85 cents. I'll buy one of those Moon Knights. So if you hold on.
Yeah, for the record, my problem is not that I never sell my books. What happens is I buy them for nothing. They go sky high. I don't even know where they are. I'm like a moron. They then, I will either then inadvertently sell them for nothing out of a show box, right? Or they will then like lemmings off a cliff, you know, like and crash. And then I'll put them in a large lot and be lucky to make my money back. Plus, I owe money to the IRS and PayPal and eBay.
And every time an Amazon package comes at my door, I just look at my wife across the room and said, "Wait a minute, was that the PayPal? I actually just got paid for that book. Why am I at zero again from my my PayPal account?" But that Grubhub alone is killing me. Let me tell you, the Grubhub struggle is real because, and I do a lot of cooking too, but I can't even imagine what the bills. But we're trying to support local places, you know, and so I'm like, okay, if I can put my comics back into food, that's my second great love. We spoke about that before, Nico. It's like pop culture and then food, and then my family's, you know, somewhere in the trio.
So since I believe in my heart of hearts, you're one of the best pickers. Period. Okay, but
go on.
Yeah, but that it's not like some sort of magical, mystical Albert Einstein talent. And that the people who are like, that's not real, are insane, and God bless them. I hope they get better. Can you kind of give people who are newer to the hobby or haven't had as much luck? Because, dude, I'll literally get like negative comments. People will just be like, not everyone can pay $1 for everything. Like, what should I pay full price for that's going to go up for $1 million? I'm just like, Jesus Christ. Can you give some tips to people, you know, so to kind of help them sort of get better at the craft? Like, you know, for example, Gary and I often talk about, like, the first thing that we'll do is go look for weird boxes. Like, I like weird shit because oversized, the stupid like classics illustrated and westerns, you know what I mean? I'll flip through them to make sure like there's not some other real normal big book in there. Archie boxes or yeah. Or there's certain titles that you look for. Like I always I
look through everything.
Now we're talking.
If there is a box sitting somewhere, if I go to a friend's house and he's got a comic box, I'm like, hey, do you mind if I flip through your books? Like, I'm not even trying to buy them off my buddy, but I just want to look at them. Like, pull the book out, look for those DCU variants. Look, I mean, it often with half-price books, it's the right place, right time. You know, they're like it's super competitive in Columbus. Like, but
yes, it is.
I could walk out with a long box, and then 10 minutes later, they're restocking it. New Dimension, when we were there, you know, Jason was there restocking as we were digging because it was by appointment only. It was during the lockdown. So it was literally 3 of us and 500,000 comics in the basement. They didn't let anybody else in, and we got to hand pick through that. And I'm like, oh, and I got a little depressed when we were there because I'm like, man, they really didn't. I went right for the S's. I was looking for Scud again because I was like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna have another one of those. Like, I'm missing like 2 issues out of that run. I went the last 2, maybe they're in there, and they didn't have any. But everything that was around Scud, I recognized from the last time. Like, I've got a pretty good memory. The half price books, I know what every book they have at every 5 locations. Like, I've been through them. I was there yesterday, and nothing new is out. They're not actually buying anymore right now because of the COVID-19 thing. They're not buying comics right now. They can't take anything in. So I haven't been there other than yesterday for like 2 weeks. Like, I was there 2 weeks ago, right when they reopened, and I haven't been back except for yesterday because I was buying something for my daughter. It's not just, if you're persistent and you've got the right attitude, like, or you don't mind looking through something you looked through 4 days ago, do it, because they're going to restock it. They're going to do things where, I don't know, I kind of trailed off there with a brain fart, but
no, that's all right.
No, that's smart stuff.
Well, believe me, that's what this show is made up of.
The brain farts, not the smart stuff.
But,
what you were providing was gold.
Well, like, say hello to the person you're checking. They have name tags on. Call them by name. Introduce yourself. Creating a friendship with a shop that you're at is not a bad thing, anyways. Like, be a human being. Like, and it'll come by tenfold. Like, they don't. I'm sorry, I was reading that. If you can, dude, I brought coffee and donuts back to Half Price Books. That time after they gave me that long box, it was like came back the next day because I heard somebody say they were hungry. It's like, went and bought a box of Starbucks coffee and went by we've got a local deli called Rach's, and their donuts are amazing. It's like Christ made them. You like walk back in, I'm like, oh, here, just
hold on. What was that again? What's that place called?
Rach's.
How do you spell that?
I think it is REICH''S.
Yeah. So the transubstantiated donuts in Columbus. I'll have them soon.
We have a place here that does the same. So I don't want to stop your thought, Joseph, but I want to talk about. I think what's really interesting is, there are people who just collect books, and now, we've seen a trend in the last maybe like 5-6 years. So collecting the variants of books and the wide range of variants from, so first we were looking at newsstands, right? Newsstands were things people were going after. Price variants people were going after. You brought up the DCU variants that people were going after. And now it seems to me the big thing is second and third print variants. So to me, it's always sort of, there's a niche within the actual collecting community where you have people who just will collect foreign variants. Like Nico can speak to that because they talk about it all the time on Flipside. I think there's so many sub-genres of collecting within that community, and most shop owners aren't going to know to look at these specific type of variants. So that's where I think there's a lot of room for profit, as well as knowing the different types, like knowing 35 cents versus 25 cents, or being able to read a UPC code. Like, I didn't know for a while, like, the difference between a variant cover and a second print, like, it's the last number on the UPC. I didn't know that until I started, getting involved more in a buying and speculating. When I was collecting, that wasn't even on my radar. So I'm sure that's something you look at as well, and you have to be knowledgeable in that regard.
Here's a little nugget for you. If you're a DCU variant collector, if you chase those and you're flipping through a long box and you see one, you happen to find one, keep looking. They were sold in 5-packs and 10-packs and 2-packs. If you see one, or at least in a Half Price Books type of situation, like, whoever turned in that collection, they turned everything in. So if you find one, odds are you're going to find 5 or you're going to find 10 of them. Just keep looking. And it's true. Every haul, I take photos of my hauls in Half Price Books just because for the longest times we'll be like, oh, you didn't you didn't find that there. And like, okay, cool. So I started actually just taking photographs of my hauls in front of their wooden comic boxes, like with the manager, like
with the arm around them. They put you up in the store with.
I'm not going to show you my receipt because that receipt doesn't mean anything. That receipt, I could have bought whatever and then came home and pulled books out of my my back stock and said, so I actually started like lining the books up in front of they all have the same wooden long box section. So, and they all have the same carpet. So you can see those photos like, oh, here's a Tech 880 for $1.50, along with like, the first Miles Morales and stacks of other books that I put all the good stuff on top and take a quick picture so I don't look like a complete dork inside of half price books. But oh yeah, Patrick, yeah, true, yeah. You actually have to pull the whole book out for the most part. There's a few that are at the top, but they're rare.
Yeah, which is a pain in the ass too. And I think let's just to get real practical. Some people can like look at or pretend like they can look at like 2 inches of a comic and know what it is. The guy that owns New Dimension tried to convince me that he can do that. And I'm like, I don't even know what's happening. For me, maybe because I'm dumb, I got to pull like 6 books out, stick them on the side. I've been banned from shops for doing this too, just so that I can actually flip with like speed to see the full cover. That's how my brain works, and it lets me run through boxes a lot faster.
Yeah, and you always have to take a short stack out, put it on the side, so because when they have those boxes packed tight, you don't want to be bending everything as you're looking through too.
Right, I'm not trying to like mangle the books either. Yeah. So I think that's important.
Yeah. Sorry.
Etiquette.
Yeah, that's a big thing, and plus, I don't want to see also when I'm walking through boxes. I don't want to see hairy ass cracks like as you're digging down a low box. Like pull the box out a little, like have a little like decorum. Come on, I mean really.
Even at my garage sales, like I always appreciated the guys. I mean, for the most part, they were dollar books anyways, but I appreciate the people that pulled out, a stack like this so they could flip through, as opposed to, putting that little ding in the top of everything that's,
and you can actually see those dings in it. And the best is when you're in a big store and a lot of boxes and you're digging through one long box and you got a neck breather, right? Like you got the guy who's right behind your box as you're going through, and I'm like, really?
Dude, the looks of death that I've fucking given people. Yeah. Like, they're just, I'm like, there's 70 fucking feet on each side. Get the fuck away from me.
Yeah. That's a big thing. And like, you know what I think it is? I think it must be, it must be my celebrity cash now that, we're big YouTube celebrities. It must be they see me and like, oh, he must know.
I think it's because I'm short. They try to like reach over me and shit. I'm like, I'm gonna hit you with a fucking elbow. Yeah.
Well, it actually has worked out, I have to say, on eBay now, where I get sometimes, and it's like, oh, wait, Comic Perspective, I saw you on this or that. So really, the thing is, it's just us selling to the people in this chat right now. It's only the same, like, 15, 20 people selling it to each other. And being like, oh, you brought the feedback, and I slabbed it. I missed it.
It's your turn to hold it.
But I do want to thank in the chat, we have Larry, of course. We have CK3 Comics, DK. We have Patrick, who's a hometown guy with you guys. We got Overweight.
Yeah, he won't meet me. I've been trying to meet up with that guy forever. Drives me nuts.
Yeah. Paul Diggs Comics. We gotta thank you for those like that same bunch who come in. Like we appreciate you coming in and just hanging with us. And please, if you have questions, this is like I said, first appearance. I'm slabbing HBC right after this, so so ask questions now, please.
I got a good story. I mean, you guys, you know Ben Stein?
Oh
yeah,
from CBSI. That Ben Stein. So he was driving through Columbus one time, and he's on that Hangouts chat with us. He stopped at Laughing Ogre, which is my local, my LCS. Like that's where one of my polls is at. And he goes through their back issues, and he pulls out the is A1 the
shit.
Yeah, that was in my backyard. I didn't know it. He posted it there. He's like, I see the sticker on the $4 sticker or whatever he paid for it.
Got him.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, yeah. See, like I said, never stop digging, man. Like that was literally in my backyard. I'll be honest, I don't go through their back issues there because they're generally always picked through. Like the Key Collector app, it sends the wolves out once they hit something. But that book's not on any hot list or anything like that. But it was just sitting there for $4. So it's not like I'm the the best digger. I appreciate all the kind words or anything like that, but like that made me feel like the worst. Like I and
even you, right? If that could even happen to you, and I think that's another key, because we always like to like sort of like stretch that advice out. One, it's do have a list, like keep a paper list or a phone list of books that that you're constantly on the lookout for, because you never know when you might strike that gold, especially with more of the esoteric books that aren't popping up on a key alert. And I think the other thing is just in general to know there are certain books that nobody knows about yet, and that's always being prepared. Knowing, having a little history. Not everybody can read through every book, and that's why I do what I do. That's why certain people do what they do, because we love to share that out. And like, okay, you know what? I live in Staten Island, so there are chances I'm not going to get my hands on any books apart from the internet and maybe a couple Manhattan places that have long box stocks. But if somebody else gets that book, that's a good thing. I love to celebrate people getting books, and that like it's not like I'm competing with somebody in Chicago or competing with someone in Cali. So that's why we do this show. We want people to find these books.
I can't find a picture of the A1 variant.
You can't have it on there.
Yeah.
I was going to try to show it, but yeah, that's one that I'm sorry.
Oh, so yeah, people can look it up. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's not nothing I wanted for my PC. It was just like that. I left meat on the bone somewhere.
It's like the Deadly Pair. Like I ain't turning it down. I don't know that I'd pay like $90 for it, but I won't pay like full price for anything.
Yeah,
I don't. You know what I mean?
I'd cough up $4 for it all day, but I wouldn't have paid $90 for it. So here's
I don't even know what it's worth these days. Is it like a $50 book maybe?
I mean, I'm sure you could drop it for 50. I think it's more like 80 or 90.
That's what I thought. Okay, I don't know. It's hard.
I'm sure you can't read my chicken scratch here, but
Hold on.
Just to give you
I'll put you big for a second.
Oh, yeah. So anyways, what I did was with the key collector app, it's a love-hate relationship with me with that. I hate the people that sit there in front of bins with it in front of their face, looking everything up so I can't get into the box. Like, just, get
Hold
out.
on. Unless they're at your booth at a Harper show.
Oh, yeah. I do. I've only done one show at the Harper show.
Then you're like, come, there's key collector app stations for you to look at and buy all my books.
I put tags on them. I put these on there for you. These are key collector books I've stuck on there. But no, they've got a topic on there called dollar bin diving.
Oh, wow.
And on my way to LWC last time, I had this this thing, or 3 hours to kill, with a couple buddies in the car. And I was literally just going through the dollar bin diving. It's hokey because it's all alphabetical. It's not like you can go right to whatever. So I started with the A's. I knew New Dimension was all alphabetized. So I went to the A's. I clicked on the A's. And if I thought I was interested in it, I would just jot it down. And then I went to the B's and I did the same thing. Like, that's an interesting part of that app. So I knew it was going to be in alphabetical order. I literally started at the A's. I went to the A1 because I'm like, oh man, if I could find that here, that would be awesome. They didn't have it. They had a couple of the other A1 variants, but not the art germ. And then just literally went down the line of all of their dollar bin diving things. Like, and I probably pulled out. I mean, dude, I filled a long box that time. Maybe I got sidetracked on that story, but I almost didn't go this time because we could barely fill a long box with a buddy last time. And if I didn't find that Adam Hughes variant last time, it wouldn't have been worth it. So this time, like, I had to blindly spend almost $300 to go in and maybe or maybe not fill a long box, but also had no problem filling a long box this time. They're really good about restocking their boxes, even though there is going to still be stuff there from last time. Nico, you showed that first Jason Voorhees in was it Satan or whatever?
Yeah,
dude, I have 19 copies.
Yeah, at $1 a piece. Well, here's the thing, right? All it'll take is one key alert.
Oh yeah.
Lights out.
Yeah. And by the way, Justin, can you go back and just show your book page by page? And I'm just going to take screenshots for the next 10 minutes now. But what I would recommend is actually, if you're a low tech person, getting an address book, like getting a simple address book like this. It's alphabetical already. So as you get as you get titles, you put it in alphabetical in your address book. So you walk in a store and you're not going through a whole book. You're going through your A's and your B's and your C's. What a simple low-tech tool that yields dividends. So again, we like to keep the advice, keep the tips coming. So Nico, we are approaching 2 hours. Anything else? I
would like to thank our dear friend, the Half Price Crook from Columbus, Ohio. You give me hope. Know that. As a guy who loves to dig, you do two things that I really I respect and I admire. One is you fucking get the job done and you bring home the bounty. And two is you do it unapologetically here from my region of the country, and it makes me smile. It really does.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. And yeah, it was amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that was it. And you know what? We know we don't have guests on the show. One, because we love the sound of our own voices, but two, because we have a format going. But this was thank you so much. Celebrity. And I know you hooked it up just to get on here, and you put your son to work. But that it meant a lot. Thank you for coming on. And I hope you couple aspirin and water a night. I don't have to tell you, you're a bartender. You know the tips. For no hangover the next day. But
It's already wore off. I'm fine. I talked it off or listened it off, but
that's great.
Hey, can I get your opinion on something? Because this happened a while back. I'm not sure if you remember, but it was. I think it was one of the Facebook groups. I think Google Plus was dead by that time, but so somebody posted that they saw an Amazing Spider-Man 129 at one of the local half-price books here in Columbus, Ohio, and. They put it on blast. They were asking $800 for it. It wasn't in their comic box. It was actually up on their wall. And it's the one I rarely go to, and it's also the one where my friend found the Thorn, number one.
Wow.
But this was on their wall. They had $800 on it. So he was asking the Facebook collective in this group, like, hey, should I pull the trigger on this ASM 129 at my local half-price books? And I look at it and I see it. I see the wall and I'm like, oh shit, that's Broad Street. Like, okay. And actually, he's asking a question that nobody can answer. Like, because nobody has the book in front of them. Nobody, you can't judge by a photograph, 5 feet away from your phone whether or not you should pull the trigger on an $800 book. That's stupid. So I go to the half price books and I asked to look at it. Lady pulls it out. So you mind if I take it out of the bag? And she says, no, not at all. So I take it out. Well, there's water damage. I mean, the book's riddled with a press made it look amazing, but there was no way that's an $800 book. And as soon as I pull it out, I could see that there was water damage. And I said, oh, well, no thanks. Like, I'm not interested. And she goes, oh, what's wrong? I said, well, I mean, it's ridiculously overpriced. There's no one's going to pay $800 for this book. It's got water damage. She's like, oh. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. Let me grab a manager. So the manager comes over and she points out to the manager that the book has damage to it. And that, and she's literally just telling him verbatim what I just told her. And he goes like, oh, well, are you still interested in the book? And I said, well, not at $800. I said, I'll give you $150 for it. It's still valuable. Don't take that away. It's still a valuable book. I'll give you that, but it does have damage. It would have to be repaired or bought at that, at that grade. And he goes, will you do 200? And I said, yeah, I'll give you $200 for it. Like, I can press that.
I give up.
That leaves some meat on the bone. And well, I took a bunch of flack for it
for what?
On social media, because he goes, oh, you just swoop in and buy the books. And I said, dude, that was 2 days ago that he posted it. Nobody can answer that question. Like, I'm not trying to be a jerk. Like, I didn't swoop it up, But dude, you did put it on blast on Facebook on where you bought the book or where you saw the book. I went and haggled.
You just saved that poor son of a bitch from paying $800 for a water damaged comic. You did him a service. What are you fucking? I mean, yeah.
Okay. I just for my own, so I can sleep later at night. I've been thinking about that for like a year and a half now. Like,
number one lesson: stay off Facebook. That's successful. It's bad enough that.
Time out. If you would have just given him $600, would you have felt okay with that? Because, yeah, no, I don't think that's a wolfish move at all.
no. Yeah, and again,
it's not like it was a buddy who was like, "Hey, I'm bidding on this auction." You're like, "I'm going to bid on it too." Like that's prick. That's
everybody
bizarre.
else.
Nobody does that.
Anybody else could have had a chance. No, absolutely. You never look back. Just always, leave them in your debt behind.
I thought about it at the time, offering him to him for $400. Like, hey, I just saved you $400. You were asking if you should pay $800. I pressed it and cleaned it. Now I'll sell it to you for $400. Everybody's a winner, right? Like I just saved you $400. I make 100 or 200, $150, whatever it was, and we all walk away happy.
Capitalism at its finest.
Amen.
I didn't do that because I didn't want to come across as a jerk. Like I'm not trying to stoke the fire or anything like that. Like it was already. I thought it was better just to leave that lie, and the next shiny thing would come up next week, and everybody forget about it. But yeah, I did feel like a little bit of a jerk for a second there. But then I was like, well, I mean, if anything, you're right, dude. I saved the guy some money. I couldn't answer your question, but I did want to go look at the book. I've never seen a ASM 129 at Half Price Books before, so.
Wow. And that's a big thing. I think if you're paying big money for a book, you better demand to look at that book. You better see the back cover. You better be able to go look through it. Anyone who tells you, oh no, that book's not coming out of the bag. It's different if you're the guy who's going through dollar boxes and pulling every book out of bags. But when you're on a wall or something like that, you better say, yeah, you can handle it and show it to me, but I want to look through this and see it. And I'm not going to pay this sight unseen, because then I bring it home and all of a sudden someone cut a coupon out of the back. I mean, come on, let's be real. And those are the kind of things that happen. And people are just, that's why I said, when you have a book that's slabbed, you know what you're getting. When you have a raw, there's a reason why you're paying a slabbed upgrade for a book that's graded, even if it's a low grade book, because that book has been gone through already, and you're paying the premium for that. So it's a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, also too, if you're at a Half Price Books, or I've never been to a Second and Charles, but Second and Charles is also a place I can't wait to go find one somewhere someday. They don't have them around here. Definitely, if you're going through a Half Price Books, what do they call their collectibles box, where they mark, and generally it's the running joke of a Half Price Books, because what they do is if they see a 12-cent copy of something, they're immediately it's a $25 or a $50 book. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's like a 3.0 grade. Like they just see the comic people don't know what they're doing at all. Like zero. Like they just see old book means money, put a $20 price tag on it, throw it in a box. If you ask somebody, the cashier that's helping you or whatever, ask to speak to a manager. Introduce yourself and say, hey, I know a little bit about comics. I don't know how you price this, or if it was a mistake, perhaps. Perhaps like somebody thought it was a different issue, because there's no way this is worth $40. Like this is a $2 book. Why is it even in here? And start your conversation that way with them. Get to talking to them, get to know them, just like you would do your local comic shop. Like, I mean, if you don't know the name of the owner of your local comic shop, you're doing it wrong already. Like, they have discounts. They'll help you. I mean, my local comic shop, when the Spawn thank you variants came out, I got phone calls. Hey, I know you like Spawn. You want me to put this in the box for you? Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Same thing with the Spawn 300s. Like I got text messages from my local comic shop, like, hey, we got the gold. Are you interested? I'm like, no, I'm really not.
That's funny. My local comic shop owner called me recently and was like, hey, some asshole came in here trying to sell what I think are stolen goods, and he dropped your name. What the fuck? It's like Power Ranger something or another.
But I think those are important relationships. And we spoke about, like in Staten Island, I only have 2 shops still open. One is a big chain, Jim Hanley's, because Comic Book Jones shut down. And then I have a little Hypnotronic Comics near the Staten Island Ferry. And it's this woman who has kept the shop afloat after her husband. They're both Dead fans, very of the hippie generation. And I want to support her, right? And if you don't have a shop like that, you can find like shops within a distance, like a Huntington, Long Island. I'm back and forth with this guy. He sent me a curated thing of graphic novels for my daughter. Develop those relationships. You don't have to have a shop and leave your house. You can develop relationships other ways if you can't do it. But those are key. If you want to have access to things and you feel like, oh, wait a minute, how do I do that? Reach out and go to the same place over and over again. So I think that's really important. And get kicked out like Nico too. So,
Banned.
Yeah, banned for life. Nico,
I'm on my way to Hypnotronic Comics in Staten Island right now. The name alone got me.
You got Hypnotronic. That Salt of the Earth's place is so small. Literally, they get like maybe 2 copies of every title of things that aren't on a pull list. But she gets beautiful long boxes in. They have all memorabilia on the wall. Sweetest woman around. Hypnotronic Comics, Staten Island. If you're ever in Staten Island, you come over the ferry and you're in the city, give me a shout out. Hit me up via Twitter, and I'll meet you there for a tour. Anybody. So, but I want everybody to be safe. I'm gonna eat my breakfast over here. I want to thank you again, Jessup. Nico, as always. I think number one, guys, please be safe, and know that everybody out there in the comic community, those ones who you know the people that you constantly have relationships with, you talk to, everybody is looking out for everyone else. Please be safe, and like I said, we took a little time out for comics, but life is out there, and like I said, make your voices heard, everybody.
Absolutely.
Peace. And let's go Yankees. I didn't wear my Reds thing because you were Indian. So, all right, guys, have a good one.
Bucko fever.
Peace to the chat, Charlie Hustle. Everybody else, thanks for the love.
Also, please bring back baseball.